I'm sure we just have that one friend who's just an overachiever and they can do literally everything. So they get straight A's, they play 10,000 sports, they have 10,000 extracurricular activities, and they are in a healthy relationship. I'm sure a lot of us have wondered at some point in time, how do they have so much time to do that? Well, let me share with you my conjecture, and trust me, it just boils down to two concepts that are sort of universal across the human experience. And I'm gonna just put a disclaimer on screen because there's a lot to disclaim about. I don't necessarily think it's the healthiest thing you can do, but obviously to each his own. So the first concept is the law of diminishing marginal returns. So essentially, the more time you spend on something, the less you get out of it. So if we put this in the context of studying, let's compare people who have studied for 1 hour, 2 hours, and 3 hours for a test. And assuming everything else is constant and the only thing that is different is the amount of time they studied, it's more than likely that the difference between the person who studied 1 hour and 2 hours will be far greater than the difference between the person who studied for 2 and 3 hours. And that's just a function of the diminishing utility curve. So that's number one. The second law that I want to talk about is Parkinson's law. And this basically states that work expands to fill how much time you assign to it. So let's say you have a project due 1 month from now, and let's say you start today. Somehow or another you're gonna find yourself rushing it the night before it's due. And I'm sure we've all been in group projects that have gone like that. If somehow you haven't experienced that, well, I applaud you, because couldn't be me. And yes, I think that if you want to do a lot of things, you just have to put faith in these two concepts. Let me explain why. So firstly, law of diminishing marginal returns. So let's say you have John A and John B, both have 100 available hours. John A has 1 task and John B has 10 tasks. So naturally, being John B, you try to divide your time evenly. So you spend 10 hours per task and you'll complete all of them to a satisfactory degree. Meanwhile, if you're John A, you're not gonna spend all 100 hours on one task if 10 hours is sufficient. So you're probably going to do it until you're satisfied, maybe 10, maybe 15 hours. Then the remaining 85, 90 hours, you're just gonna spend it on something else. But the point is, if you can finish the task in 10 hours and you're happy with how that goes, you're not gonna spend the entire 100 hours doing that. So similarly, in 1 week we have 168 hours. We're not gonna spend all 168 hours doing productive things. And you don't need to, because of the law of diminishing marginal returns. So you just have to do something until you're satisfied with how it is, and then call it a day. So more often than not, for maybe all these clubs and societies, maybe 2, 3, 4 hours a week is enough. And then for sports, maybe 10 or 10, 11, 12 hours, 15 hours a week is sufficient. So trust me, you still have a lot of time to do everything else that you want to do. Once the returns start to dwindle, focus your time on something else. Meanwhile, for the Parkinson's law, so as I'm editing this video, I realized I did a really bad job of explaining how to use Parkinson's law to gaslight yourself into trying to do a lot of things. So let me give it another shot. How I use this is that even if you have 10,000 different work streams of long-term projects and whatnot, chances are is that you can finish it in half or maybe a quarter of the time that they actually allocated to it. So how you can gaslight yourself and use Parkinson's law to your advantage is to just arbitrarily change the deadlines. So let's say your CS project is due in 4 weeks. Just change the deadline to 3 weeks. Then you have one extra week to do anything else that you want. Because somehow or another, if you gaslight yourself hard enough, the 3 weeks project will be like sort of set in stone, and your brain will find a way to make you complete the project in 3 weeks. Because even though the prof gives you 4 weeks for an assignment, it's not like you're gonna actually spend all 4 weeks, all 28 days working on that project. You'll probably only spend X number of days in 28 days. So you just reallocate those X days into 21 days, and problem solved, you have extra time to do whatever you want. Yeah, that's how you can make time for yourself. I hope you learned something from this video, even though it's purely my opinion. But yeah, Parkinson's law of diminishing marginal returns, very powerful. Yeah, cheers!